So, how do I become a better bow hunter without any experience? In other words, you get so little opportunity during bow season. If you're like me, you hunt public land here in Florida or any other state for that matter. Public land's tough. Early season hunting's tough. How do I get better at bow hunting without experience? In other words, opportunity. I'm going to dive into that subject. I've been doing a little thinking about it, and I think I might have come up with a solution to gaining experience without even having an opportunity. I know that I've hunted a couple of years in a row without any real opportunity on a buck. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to share my thoughts on the topic. We're going to go outside, and I'm going to show you my archery range and my new setup and the thought process that created it. So here we go. We'll be back with you in just a minute. So I've kind of made a little list here of ideas. I kind of brainstorm these thoughts, and much like, brainstorming any kind of process, the first one isn't exactly what you can do, it's what you don't do. All right. So in order to become a better bow hunter, this may seem a little bit contrary, but don't give up on gun hunting to become a better bow hunter. I know there's a group of guys out there somewhere throughout the country that pride themselves on being just bow hunters. And there's a little bit of, elitism in there. Well, we just bow hunt. Well, if you come to the public land process of hunting with that attitude, well, you just might be in for a huge disappointment, because bow hunting on public land is tough and you need to be experienced. You need experience gun hunting in order to become a better bow hunter. If you all you've done is gun hunt and you want to become a bow hunter, well then that foundation has been laid, right? But if you want to start hunting and you're thinking, well, bow hunting sounds like it'll be good because it's a challenge, and indeed it is. And this is the sort of thing that I would like to do because it's a challenge, and I like the idea of bow hunting instead of gun hunting because it gives the animal a fighting chance. I like that, and indeed it does. But we're human, right? And we're subject to failure. And I've always been a believer that success is built on the ladder rung of failure. So if I'm climbing up a ladder and those rungs are points of failure, but I'm still able to climb that ladder, well, at the top of that ladder is what I would call success. That's where I want to get. So if I have to get through the failures to get to success, well, I'm going to climb that ladder. But gun hunting will teach you the foundation of what it means to line up a shot. Gun hunting will teach you what it means to be overcome with buck fever. And I promise you, it's much easier to overcome buck fever hunting with a rifle than it is hunting with a bow. Okay? Buck fever from a tree stand with a bow and arrow is not a pleasant experience. You may spend several seasons trying to get that buck in bow range, and that opportunity finally comes, and you're overcome with buck fever because you haven't conditioned yourself through the process of gun hunting, okay, to overcome the buck fever, to at least know what it feels like, right? Because like I said, if you are bow hunting and that deer comes in at 10 yards and you didn't know he was coming, and suddenly he's there and you get kind of caught, well, that's going to be a sad outcome, because you've waited who knows how long. Maybe it'll be your first hunt, but I wouldn't count on it. Season after season after season, I've gone and I've had a handful of opportunities. I've killed some hogs with my bow, but I can still count on one hand the amount of deer I've killed with my bow. It's tough. So gun hunting has laid down a foundation for me that has helped me become a better bow hunter. And I know it. Years of experience have taught me this, okay? And I'm passing that on to you. If you want to hunt with only a bow, you go right ahead. But if you want to increase your chances as a hunter, okay, to learn, the minute you shoot a deer with your rifle, you will fast forward your success rate. I don't know how much, but a bunch, okay? You'll get that experience, what it feels like when you shoot your deer. When you get down out of your stand and blood trail it for 50 or 60 yards and find your deer laying there. When you shoot that deer with a rifle, maybe you'll shoot 2 or 3. Maybe you'll go the first 2 or 3 seasons without even an opportunity with a bow and arrow. But then you'll come Thanksgiving weekend, you'll be sitting in your tree stand with a rifle and a nice buck will come by. How disappointing would that be? If it was Thanksgiving weekend and everybody around you was hunting with a rifle, but your arrogance caused you to say, well, I'm a bow hunter. I'm not going to gun hunt. And that buck standing out there, a nice buck that anyone would like to kill, and you're sitting there with a bow and you have no opportunity on that buck whatsoever. Now, if that's what you want to do, you go ahead. You won't get criticized by me. I'm all for it, okay? But there's a guy out there that's sitting on the fence. He doesn't know whether he should hunt with a rifle or with a bow. And my advice is for you to do both, okay? So the first step to becoming a better bow hunter is to become a better gun hunter. Learn to line up that shot. Learn to be patient. Learn to wait for that deer to give you the opportunity that you're waiting for. All of this will come into play when you bow hunt, when that archery comes into play. Now, archery and bow hunting are two different things, okay? Shooting a block target in your backyard 100 times a day, 2 weeks before hunting season starts, will not make you a better bow hunter. It'll make you a better archer. Gun hunting, that one opportunity where you're able to turn slowly with that rifle, line up those sights and see that deer, give you a chance and to squeeze off that shot, will prepare you for the day that deer comes in. You'll be sitting in your stand with a bow and arrow, okay? So that's my first conclusion on my little study, my personal study on how to become a better bow hunter. Become a better gun hunter. All right, so that's my first step. All right, so now I'm going to take you outside and I'm going to show you my new thought process on target practice. All right, let's go outside and let's pick it up from there. So you have found yourself joining me in my tree stand. I'm in my backyard. And what I'm doing is simply, for a lack of a better way to say it, is make-believe hunting. I'm making believe that I'm on a hunt. And in order to become a better bow hunter, I want to and seek to replicate what I'll experience on my hunt. Let's face it, I've got a block target that I've been shooting for the past 10 years. The same block target over and over and over again, from 30 yards, 40 yards, sometimes 80 yards. Preparing for elk hunts out in Colorado and Wyoming, swamp hunts here in Florida, and I've shot that block target thousands of times. Standing in my backyard, standing in my front yard, using good form, good technique, proper breathing, proper release. But here's the problem. None of that will really prepare you for an authentic hunt. Here's why. I just shot a deer directly underneath my stand. And never has the block target helped me become a better bow hunter. It's helped me become a better archer because of the repetitiveness. Sure, I use the block target I'll range it and set my pins and set my dial for distance. Okay, this is 40 yards, range it, shoot the block target. It's very forgiving. It's large, gives me lots of space. If I'm a little low, I don't lose my arrows. If I'm a little high, I still hit the target. It's good for that. Keep the block target and use it to set up your sights. But if you want to authenticate a hunt, all right, so this is what I did. This is pretend hunting, okay? But it's going to prepare my mind and my eyes for what I'm going to experience when that moment comes. So I'm just going to show you my backyard and show you my setup here, okay? And this is something I just kind of made up. All right, so I'm going to pretend that this is my trail, right? And I'm going to pretend that that deer shows up 20 yards from this location. And it's going to walk down this trail, along the edge of the canal, down along the edge of those ferns, and he's going to keep moving, and I'm going to be powerless to stop him, okay, until I grunt to him. But none of this gives me an opportunity to shoot at him because he's coming right on. Now, I could probably grunt to him or whistle and try and make him stop, but the thought just escapes me, and the deer comes right down here and stops right there, simply because the buck feels like there's something wrong, and that's where he stops. Now, I just shot that deer with my bow. I'm seated in my worn and sweat tree stand. I came to full draw. I had to angle down and turn and twist and line up the sights. But I was able to put that arrow through the kill zone on that 3D target. Shooting your block in your backyard over and over and over again will never ever take the place of you getting in your backyard, putting up. Now, whether you hunt in a climbing stand or a ladder stand, maybe even a saddle, you're going to need to become familiar with how all that is going to unfold before crunch time. If that deer ends up at the bottom of my tree and he's just standing there, and I know now I can pull that off, okay? If the angle was a little bit this way or a little bit that way, maybe not. If he was over on this side, maybe not. I know I can stand up, but the problem is I got a great big limb over my head. Everything on my right is out of the question, okay? But there's nothing over here. My trail is over here. I've set up my stand on my trail. I've put my 3D target right underneath where I'm going to get an opportunity to shoot that deer. I just came in here. I just put the 3D target right there. This is the tree I use when I want to set up my tree stand. I also shoot out this way. I'm going to show you another aspect to the 3D target in just a minute. But yeah, this helps me more than all the block target standing in the backyard, standing in the front yard. Get in your tree stand, put on your safety harness, bring your arrows, okay, and shoot 3 times at a target that maybe you feel like you can't hit or line up on. And when you're able to accomplish that, when you're able to make that shot, provided the deer stands there, you never know what's going to happen. But this is a training exercise. This is pretend hunting. I know, it's crazy. My wife thinks I'm nuts. But for years and years and years, I just picked up my bow, picked up my arrows, went out of the backyard, doink, 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 doink. Same results over and over and over again. And what happens when that deer ends up at the bottom of my tree? How does that help me? Well, it doesn't. This helps me. Consider setting up your tree stand, put on your safety harness, get some arrows, make an afternoon of it. Now, if you don't have a place to shoot, maybe you can find a vacant lot. I wouldn't go into a wildlife management area to do target practice, okay? You might get arrested. But find a spot, even consider doing this. On your first hunt, take some field points with you, unscrew your broadheads, do a few practice shots from in your tree stand, okay? Or your saddle or your ladder stand. When you get through, get ready to get down, go to the truck, a few practice shots, boom, over there, boom. I wouldn't shoot where I couldn't get my arrow. Just shoot them into the ground. Get familiar with what it's gonna be like in the environment that you're gonna be hunting. All right, I got something else I wanna show you. I'll be back with you in just a minute. So we're back on the ground, and I've got my bow attached to my camera. I got my camera attached to my bow. I wanted to try and video the movement that I had to make and the turns and twists had to execute in order to make that shot. And it certainly doesn't fall in the category of good form or good technique, but it's bow hunting, okay? So if you got a 3D target, you should have it set up for practical application. What's that mean? Well, my tree is right over there. That's got my tree stand in it. And my deer is right here. So what this does, and really what I like to do is I like to put my deer in a quartering away, moving away, quartering away configuration. I like to have my deer the way I would see him in the wild, and many times shots are made quartering away because the deer moves into bow range. Suddenly the deer realizes that he's not alone. Maybe he picks up the smell, maybe he has a sense that lets him know. That's why the deer stops underneath the tree. He's walking down the trail, suddenly he comes to the tree and he smells something. He smells a rat, right? And he stops and he tries to assess his flight factor, okay? Gives you time to come to full draw, make a play on that deer. Maybe not, maybe he'll run right off. Who knows? The point is, you're training your mind and your eye for what it'll see when that moment comes. Putting your deer in the cover where it looks like a hunting situation does something to your mind, it does something to your eye. This is what it's gonna look like when crunch time comes, all right? If you don't have a 3D target, get you a 3D target. Shoot it at different ranges without adjusting your sight. Know your effective range, know how far you can shoot effectively, and aim quartering away. Quartering away is always going to be more difficult than broadside, okay? Broadside is a perfect scenario. You're not going to have perfect scenario in the woods. It's always going to be a moving target, stuff in the way, in the cover. You never know what you're going to get, okay? So that's point 2 of our how to become a better bow hunter without actually bow hunting, without getting the experience that you need. All right, so we're going to go back inside to the studio. I've got one more very important tactic and tip that's going to help you become a better bow hunter without even the season being here yet. And you're going to want to see this, okay? All right, we'll see you in a minute. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the most important aspect of the bow hunt, and that is the setup. I have a terrible history with archery bow hunting setups. I really didn't give it any much thought. I really didn't care one way or the other, just as long as I was in a spot where I could see through the woods, where I could easily access and be comfortable in the shade, and those are the things that were important to me. I really didn't think about the animal I was hunting, or its habits, or its food sources. I didn't put myself in a position where I could stand the best chance of seeing a buck. Like I said, I would just hunt anywhere, and I'd place my stand anywhere, and it really didn't need to make any sense, and most of the times it didn't from a hunter's perspective, from a bow hunter's perspective. So what does all that mean? It means that before I set my tree stand up in a tree, I need that spot to meet a certain list of requirements in order for me to be excited about hunting that spot. I started this practice about, I guess it was about 18 years ago. I was hunting that private land. I was talking about it in the other video. And I noticed it had a habitat that the deer seemed to like more than other portions of that private land. And I decided that I would go into a management area and I would hunt the habitat that reminded me of that spot. And of course, it was the Cabbage Palm Swamp. I wanted to hunt the Cabbage Palm Swamp. I've seen more deer in the Cabbage Palm Swamp habitat than I ever have anywhere when I was hunting in the Withlacoochee State Forest. All right, now when you get in Ocala, it's a little different. But other management areas may or may not have Cabbage Palm Swamp, but the Withlacoochee State Forest certainly does. So I would concentrate my efforts if the place didn't have visible food source, in other words, oak trees with acorns dropping. If it didn't have that, maybe I'd mark it off my list. If it didn't have, obviously the first thing you look for is deer tracks, right? Any hunter likes to see deer tracks. If I saw a trail and the deer trail was meandering through the Cabbage Palm Swamp, it might lead you to believe that deer are using that trail and using that maybe island of swamp. But if you're not set up on the trail, what good is it? If the deer are walking on the trail and you're not on the trail, well, how are you going to kill that deer with a bow? That is where the setup comes in, okay? I look for rubs, I look for scrapes, and deer trails. And food sources really are last on that agenda list. If you find a white oak tree or a persimmon tree, these things that I've never seen in the central Florida woods, never seen a persimmon tree, I've never seen a white oak. I've seen all kind of other oaks, but never a white oak that you hear so much about. I just have never found one. If you found one and it was full of deer tracks and acorns were falling and you could see that the deer were coming to it, sure, set up on that food source. I would if I found that, but I very rarely find that. And in Florida, you almost got year-round growth. You can find acorns from September all the way to February. So, food sources, they're everywhere until a good freeze comes, if you even have a freeze at all. And there's always plenty of browse, and that's what deer like the most, is just to be able to nibble a here and a little there, and nibble a little bit here, and browse throughout. And they don't come to one particular food source all the time, especially deer on wild lands where there's not a farm or feeders or any of those kind of, attractants that deer would come to. So if you find a trail that leads to a food source, if you find a trail that has deer rubs, I would set up on that trail. if you're going to make a list of things a list of requirements to hunt an area, we'll talk about food sources, rubs, scrapes, and trails. Those are the four things that we look for, right? And if you can find a trail and set up on it. Now, when you do your setup, there are things you need to take into consideration. And when you bow hunt, you need to realize that your shot opportunity might be anywhere from 10 yards to 30 yards. If you're going to set up on a scrape, why would you set up on that scrape further away than 30 yards? You need to be right on top of that scrape, 20 yards or less, right? You need to be downwind of that scrape, depending on wherever you believe the deer is going to be coming from. You may not know which direction that deer is coming from. You may be clueless. But if you're looking at a deer scrape and the wind is blowing in your face and you're looking down to it, or there's a trail there and the wind is in your face and you're looking down to it, well, that's a good setup. It's better than it coming by your head and blowing down to the scrape where the deer's going to come, because he's going to come and visit that thing. So the most important aspect, in my opinion, in the archery hunting lifestyle is to hunt over sign and hunt up close and personal, as close as you can get to it. Avoid just wandering out and setting up in a tree because it's in the shade. Shade is good. Put that on your list. Maybe you want to hunt in a spot that's shady so the sun isn't beating down on you, but I'll tell you this much. I'd much rather hunt in the sun with it beating down on me with the wind in my favor than to be hunting in the shade and the wind blowing right down to the scrape, right down to the rub, or right down to the trail and blowing up that trail. If a deer's coming down that trail and he smells you, it's game over, right? The deer's going to turn around and go the other way. He's not going to come in. So the wind being the most important aspect, if you're being skylighted in a tree, that's not nearly as damning as the wind. Okay, the wind will bust. You can fool his eyes, but you'll never fool his nose, never in a million years. So make that list. Check it twice. When you go out into the woods to find your spot, sometimes I'll get in a big hurry, especially if I'm bow hunting, and it's early in the morning. I know it's going to be getting warm. First place I find, I'll just go ahead and settle for this right here. And there won't be any deer sign. There'll be no scrapes, no rubs in there. And we got to scout. We got to find those places. If you find a fresh rub, hunt over it. Find a tree 20 yards away or less. Determine which way the wind is blowing and set up and hunt that 4 hours. Okay, at least 4 hours. And do the same thing with a scrape. I've had deer come to scrapes where there were no rubs. I've had deer come to rubs where there were no scrapes. I've experienced both of those. I've experienced deer, one right after another, coming down a trail that I was set up on. I saw a whole line of deer come walking down trails. So, your setup is probably the most important aspect of the archery hunt, and the wind, okay, and putting everything in your advantage, being in a position where you can come to full draw and shoot on your good side, and hopefully kill that deer. So I hope this video helps you. I really appreciate all of you guys watching. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to. I'm going to do more of these because I enjoy doing them. I enjoy doing them because they help me think things through, and it helps me get through the summer and get on to fall, and let's go bow hunting, and let's do it together and have a good time and be safe. All right, we love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.